All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torah Studies. This week's Torah portion is Tetzaveh. We are deep in the book of Exodus. Tetzaveh, all right, we have like 4 portions left to the end of the book, but who is counting? All right, so tonight we are going to explore the making of, the instructions regarding the making of the Mishkan. And we're going to explore what the purpose of this building was. Now, okay, if I were to catch you cold, i.e., at a class on a Tuesday night, that's all about Torah, super cold, right? Super out of context. I'm kidding. So if I were to catch you cold, not cold, and ask you the question, how would you translate Mishkan? What would you say? Give me a working definition. Mishkan, translation.
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary. Good. What else? Tent of meeting. Okay, good. Excellent. What else? Mishkan. Okay, Mishkan is typically translated as tabernacle. Now, honestly, the only tabernacle I know is that music venue. Is it still around? Is it tabernacle? Did they move? They did move. All right. Anyway, tabernacle is a music venue in downtown, midtown, downtown at this point. All right. But the original tabernacle, the OG tabernacle, was the home, the first iteration of God's home on earth. Can you imagine? How do you build a home? You know, like the question that people ask, like, it's a birthday, or like, what do you get for the person that has everything? Like, yeah, it's like impossible. Like, how do you build a home for God? God is like infinite, not of bodily form. What kind of home is this? The home is that way that God designed it. He said how to build it. He said what to build. You know, like Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. God says, build it and I'll come. I'll show up. Build it and I'm there. So we built it. But here so Truma and Tetzaveh, that last week's Torah portion and this week's Torah portion are all about the instruction of how to build the Mishkan, how to build this tabernacle. I don't really know, Mishkan means tabernacle. Honestly, I don't know what tabernacle means, but that's where we're at right now. Tabernacle, I'm assuming, refers to a portable sanctuary built by the ancient Israelites traversing the desert, the Sinai desert, the desert back in the day. So that is the tabernacle. It was a portable sanctuary, a portable mikdash, a portable temple that they were able to put up and disassemble and then travel to the next spot, put it up, disassemble it, etc. Great. So last week's Torah portion, we learned about the structure. We learned about the walls and the sockets and the supports and the curtains and the roof. And we learned about the various items that were meant to go into the Mishkan. Like, for example, perhaps the most famous, the Ark of the Covenant. Remember Raiders of the Lost Ark? Who was in Raiders of the Lost Ark? That was Harrison Ford, right? Harrison Ford of Newfound. Now he's everywhere. Harrison Ford. Dude is everywhere. What's that show called? Whatever. Anyway, so Harrison Ford, Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? So you have this. So the Ark of the Covenant, i.e. the Ark that housed the tablets, that was that would be a great marketing idea for Apple. Can you imagine? An Ark, inside the Ark, boom, you have the tablets. Epic. Someone get on that. Someone call Steve. I mean, whatever the new guy's name is. All right. So what's the point? That was last week. This week's Torah portion, Tetzaveh. That was so last week. This week, good evening. The Torah portion talks about a few more items of the Mishkan, but primarily focuses on the garments, right? What are the Kohanim going to wear? Is it the Oscars where they do like the whole red carpet thing? I know Oscars was a few days ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sunday night.
It's like, they don't ask, what are you wearing? They're like, who are you wearing? Yes, I believe so. Yes, it's been a minute, but that's my recollection from rabbi school. Yeah, it's like, oh, darling, you look marvelous. Who are you wearing? And then they mention whatever the designer is. Okay, so what did the Kohanim, the folks that were operating the Mishkan, the temple, etc., what did they wear? So the Torah goes to the garments. A regular priest had 4 garments. The high priest had another 4 special garments that indicated that he was the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, or as I like to call him, the Big Kahuna. And that's it. So he had 8 garments. They had 4 garments. The Torah details what these 8 garments were, what the 4 garments were. And then it talks about the inauguration of the priests, how to train them and inaugurate them into service. You can't just say, get in the game. There's got to be a process, and that is detailed as well in this week's Torah portion. Toward the end of this week's Torah portion, I believe the excerpt that we're going to read is from reading number 6 of 7 in this week's Torah portion. It talks about the daily offering. Now, just again, it's important to place this in context. The tabernacle, the Mishkan, had not yet been built. We're still in instruction stage. We're still in the stage of the vision of what God's vision of what this structure, what this edifice should be. God is telling us what it should look like, what the Kohanim should be wearing, how to inaugurate them, initiate into the service, and what should be brought on a daily basis. So let's begin, as we always do, by reading the text. I'm going to pull up the text here for our good friends online, and we will take it away. All right, so Dave, give me 1 second. David, if you don't mind, please read text 1a. This is Exodus 29, verses 38 through 46.
And this is what you shall offer upon the altar: lambs in their first year, 2 a day continually. The one lamb you shall offer up in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer up in the afternoon. It shall be a continual burnt offering for your generations at the entrance of the tent of the meeting before God, where I will arrange meetings with you to speak to you there. There I will arrange meetings with the children of Israel, and it will be sanctified by my glory. I will sanctify the tent of meeting and the altar, and I will sanctify Aaron and his sons to serve me as priests. As I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel, and I will be their God. They will know that I am their God, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, in order that I may dwell in their midst. I am their God.
All right, great. And, if you do, thank you for reading that. If you do a casual reading, what did it say if we had to put it in our own words? I don't know, about a little bit of this, a little bit of that, whatever. It sounds very biblical, honestly, right? It sounds like, yeah. All right, who's paying too much attention? But let's break it down. Let's break it down because we want to get a little bit more in depth over here. So verses 38 and 39 talk about the Karban Tamid. Again, the structure had not been built yet. This was not an operation. This is pre-building Mishkan, the vision of what's going to happen on a daily basis. And the Torah says the Karban Tamid. Tamid means consistent or constant. This is the consistent offering. Hakeves ha'echa ta'aseh baboker. Hakeves hasheni ta'aseh bein harabayim. 1 lamb in the morning, 1 lamb in the afternoon. Famously, according to the Midrash, there was a dispute among who would have thought, different rabbis have different opinions. Crazy, right? But anyway, there was a dispute about what the most important verse in the entire Torah is. Like, if you had to pinpoint, what's the most important verse in the Torah? So one rabbi said, "Love your fellow as yourself." That's got to be the biggest, the greatest verse. One rabbi said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might." From the Shema, that's got to be the most important verse. The other one says the verse that says that God created man or mankind, humankind in his image. That's got to be the best, right? That's like, everyone's created in the divine image. And one rabbi said, no, this verse, 1 lamb in the morning, 1 lamb in the afternoon. How is that the greatest verse? The idea of consistency. It's easy to get excited about things, easy to get excited about loving our fellow, easy to get excited about, the idea of equality, easy to get excited about loving God. But the key is easy to get excited. But they say easy come, easy go. You can easily spike and then fall back down. The key is consistency. Will you do it every single day? 1 lamb in the morning, 1 lamb in the afternoon. It's symbolic of this idea of consistency, consistent dedication, consistent sacrifice to the goal. Forget the lambs. Like, it's for us, it's consistent dedication to the goal. Yeah.
Did the lambs take 12 hours and that's why it was continual? Or it
No.
was just 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening?
That's what it means, every day.
So
by the way,
continually is not really
continually. Correct. It was a quick thing. However, important to note, continuously means, it means consistently every day. Maybe continually is the wrong word for the translation. Shabbat, it was brought. Holidays, it was brought. Yom Kippur, it was brought. Every day of the year. It's like, well, Shabbat, you're not going to slaughter an animal, offer up, burn it on the altar. Yes, you would. Yom Kippur, no way, not Yom Kippur. Done. Yes, absolutely not going to eat it, but it was offered every day without fail, consistently. Remember, the message for us is this is like this is not the class. This is a bonus message, right? This is like buy one Torah class, get one free. This is like a bonus message coming at you right now, right? The key is consistency every day, not to get excited about like lofty ideals one day and then like, okay, whatever, I'm not going to change the world. I'm done. No, every day, what am I doing to further whatever the mission is? All right, that's one message. Now, let's get back into the text. So I mentioned before that the edifice, the structure, this building, this portable, I don't know, like Lego stuff, not Lego, but like, I don't know, build it, take it down, build it, tear it down type thing. It was called the Mishkan. Mishkan is typically translated as sanctuary or tabernacle. But there's another word, there's another phrase that's used for the Mishkan, and that is tent of meeting. In the Hebrew, it's Ohel Moed. Now, you mentioned this before, Toba. You mentioned tent of meeting. Tent of meeting is the literal translation of the word Ohel Moed. If you want to see it in the Hebrew, it's in verse 44, Memdaled. V'kidashta es Ohel Moed. Third and fourth words of verse 44, Memdaled, are Ohel Moed. Ohel Moed, tent of meeting. Question is, this is my question on the table right now. The question is, what does it mean that the Mishkan was a tent of meeting? Who was meeting who? And what was the meeting about? What could be? Let's explore. So what does the verse actually say? Verse 42. Sorry, 42 also mentions it. All right, I could have quoted a bunch of different words, different verses, but verse 42 also says it. So let's focus now on verse 42 for a second. I'm going to read it again. Although David read it, I want to refresh our memory. It shall be a continual burnt offering for all your generations. We got that. At the end. Oh, by the way, continual for all your generations. We don't have a temple. We're not offering it today. Where's the lamb in the morning, the lamb in the afternoon? Well, yeah, prayer. Consistent prayer, exactly. We have prayer that takes the place. We have morning prayer, afternoon prayer, take the place of this Talmud. The evening prayer, the nightly prayer, is because if they didn't finish the offerings, taking care of the offerings during the day, they could do it, certain elements, they could do it overnight. So we have one also for the night shift. Point is that is the first part of verse 42. Let's get back into 42. At the entrance of the tent of meeting before God, where I will arrange meetings with you to speak to you there. So God says, what happens in the tent of meeting? No, not what happens. That wasn't the beginning of that sentence. What happens at the meeting stays at the meeting. No, what happened in the tent of meeting? Question mark. What happens is God says, I will arrange meetings with you to speak to you there. God says, I'm going to speak to you. Who's the you? Well, who's God speaking to?
Children of Israel.
Through Moshe, right? God is speaking to Moses to tell the Jewish people. So God is saying, I will arrange meetings with you to speak to you there. Who is God speaking to at the Ohel Moed in the tent of meeting, i.e. the Mishkan? Who is God directly speaking to? Moshe. And by virtue of Moshe speaking to the Jewish people, because Moshe was going to relay the message to the people. That's verse 42. Look at verse 43. There, meaning in the tent of meeting, the Mishkan, I will arrange meetings with the children of Israel, and it will be sanctified by my glory. Now, sanctified by my glory, whatever that means. But what's the first half of verse 43 saying? There, I will arrange meetings with the children of Israel. Now, here's my question. Didn't we just say that in verse 42? Isn't that redundant? You with me? Look at 42.
One was directed to an individual and the other is directed to a group.
Yeah, but what does it mean that I'll arrange meetings with the children of Israel? It's not like did God meet with the children of Israel? What does that mean? God spoke to Moshe to speak to the people. Well, I don't know. No, your point is good. Your point is good. All of these points are good. The question is, what is the differentiation between verse 42 and 43? Now, you could say, it's just saying the same thing. Why are we reading it so carefully? No. If we're studying Torah, we got to pay attention to every verse. Every word is important. Every word is significant. There's no if it could say it in one word, it's not going to say it in two words. If it could say it in one verse, it won't say it in a second verse. So in verse 42, it says that what is a tent of meeting? It's the place where is it cold? Okay. It's a place where if it's cold, we can always bump up or close the door. All right. It's a place where I will arrange meetings with you to speak to you there. Verse 43, there I will arrange meetings with the children of Israel. Well, what's the difference? It's arranging meetings with you, with the people. What is it? Moses versus the people? Is that maybe? Is it? I don't know. I don't see much of a difference. So who do we go to? Right? Oh, like the 80s and 90s. It's like when there's something strange in the neighborhood, who are you gonna go? Thank you very much. I think they did a redo recently. Is this true?
Rashi Busters.
Rashi Busters, right? They did a redo recently, right?
Torah Busters.
Torah Bust, Mythbusters. No, not Mythbusters. Who was in the original? Was Bill Murray in there? Bill Murray wasn't there? Oh, remember they had the slime guns or something? They had something. Ecto. The Green Ghosts. Oh, epic. Good. Oh, interesting.
So these are obviously not the same kind of meetings that Sahel arranged.
Correct. All right. So when there's something strange in the verses, that's how we got here. So what do? We consult with Rashi. Who was Rashi? We know Rashi. We love Rashi. Rashi was born in, well, let me cheat now, in the year 1040. Passed away in the year 1105. He was born in France, and he authored Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, the acronym of which is Rashi. He authored the commentary that is named after his acronym, Rashi, and Rashi tells us what is what. So text 1b. Lucy, are you up to reading? Text 1b? All right, this is your inaugural text. Okay, thank you. So Rashi on verse 42 says, what does it mean, Asher Iva'ed Lachem, where I will arrange meetings with you? Rashi says, when I arrange an appointment to speak with you, that's where it's going to be. So what is, Rashi is explaining what the word Iva'ed Lachem means, what the word Iva'ed. Iva'ed means arrange a meeting. It's not, so there's two ways to understand setting a meeting. You can set a meeting in time, or you can set a meeting in space. I don't mean in outer space, but you can set a time or you can set a place. When you say, oh, I set a meeting. So typically it's like, okay, well, what time did you set the meeting? Well, it could also be, well, where did you set the meeting? So if we have this thing that we meet, let's say, oh, I don't know, every Tuesday night, 7:30 to 8:30, right here for a Torah class, that's a setting that both has a time element and a place element, right? It's set in time and it's set in place. Well, what if there's no set time? What if it's like, well, whenever the moment calls for it, I'm gonna be there, and that's the meeting spot. We'll send out the bat signal or whatever that is, then we'll meet. So what's set is not necessarily the time. What's set is the place. So what is the Ohel Moed in verse 42? The way that Rashi explains verse 42, the Ohel Moed is the tent of meeting, i.e., the space that when God meets with us or meets with Moses or whatever, speaks to Moshe, speaks to us through Moshe, that is where it's going to happen. It's called the tent of meeting. That's the location. Make sense? That's verse 42. Great. All right. Well, that's a little more clarity on 42. Well, now the question becomes, well, what does verse 43 mean when it says what it says? So we continue. Meira, please read text 2a, which is a repeat of verse 43, and then read 2b, which is Rashi.
And I will arrange meetings there with the children of Israel.
Rashi.
And I will arrange meetings there. I will gather with them to speak like a king who appoints a meeting place to talk with his subjects there.
Curious. Is Rashi saying anything different than he said in the previous verse? Let's break this down. And I'll arrange meetings there, says God. I will gather with them to speak like a king who appoints a meeting place to talk with his subjects there. What does that mean?
Sort of like Vatican Square.
Maybe, but
Pope
like
comes out on the balcony and speaks to the masses.
But is that different than verse 42? Verse 42 also said, and Rashi explained also there, when I arrange an appointment to speak with you, I'll arrange it there. I will arrange it there to come there. In other words, that's going to be the place. Plural, which one's plural? Which one's singular?
With his subjects versus speak with you. Yeah.
Text kind of seems to me like.
I don't know. In the Hebrew, Asher Yivad Lachem is also plural. It would be the all y'all in biblical vernacular. Where I will arrange meetings with y'all or all y'all. Lachem is plural, not lecha. Lecha would be singular.
To the children of Israel, that it's more like you can come here and like air your grievances or like, speak, your heart, whatever, but. for
Maybe.
Moses, it's like, it's like a business sort of almost.
Maybe.
I don't, this might be just English translation misunderstanding, but it almost seems like the first one is like God's coming there too, and the second one is God's already there and y'all are coming to listen.
Let me see that. Text 2b, I will arrange meetings there. I will gather with them to speak like a king who appoints a meeting place to talk with the subjects there. So the king implies the king is already there, whereas verse 1, text 1b, Rashi, when I arrange an appointment to speak with you, arrange it there to come there. Okay, interesting. So one is God is going to show up, and one is God is there, you're showing up. Interesting. That may be more of the English kind of insinuation as opposed to the original, but that's an interesting angle. David?
So when this is saying to talk with his subjects.
Which one? That's 2b?
To be, is
Okay,
that
yeah.
actually talking to his subjects in Hebrew,
Oh,
or is it with?
good.
Is this a two-way
Good.
communication or one-way? street?
Excellent. Good. You know what I would wish? You know what I wish? I wish that text 1b was translated differently, because 1b is misleading. But where we're going is exactly where David pointed us on the path of clarity. If you look at text 1b, it's the English is, I don't know, whatever. It's for some reason it's not precise here. I'm going to read the Hebrew. Asher Yivad Lachem, where I'll arrange meetings with you. Keshe'ekba moed l'daber elecha. When I arrange an appointment to speak to you. Elecha is to you, not with you. To you. Sham ekwa and alave, I will arrange it there to come there. There is where it's going to happen. So it's two.
He's giving the speech.
Correct.
Or
Text
direct- or
1b.
directive.
Correct. Text 2, well, Rashi in 2b, right? I will gather with them to speak like a king who appoints a meeting place to talk with. Ledaber im avadav sham, to talk with his subjects there. So now we have, thank you very much. Now we have a little bit of clarity. It's not one verse talks about God speaking to the people. One verse talks about God speaking with the people. So Farbrengen, let's ask the question. That was Yiddish for let's discuss this for a second. So let's ask the question. What's the difference? We started doing this, but let's flesh it out. What's the difference between speaking to and speaking with? How would you characterize the difference? What does speaking to imply? I'm telling you what's what. God says, I'm going to listen, there's a lot of stuff that I want you to do. I'm going to tell you what needs to happen. Now, you're not going to tell me what needs to happen. I'm going to tell you what needs to happen. God, right? God is giving the directive. What does the phraseology speaking with imply? Conversation. Oh, what? Say it again. What did you say? Two-sided conversation. A little dialogue. As opposed to a monologue. Mom, what did you say?
I said dialogue the same time you did.
We must be related. Unbelievable. All right, good. So one is God speaking to Moses to speak to the people, but two, right? And the other one is God speaking with. Now, that's, to be honest, we need to figure out what that means. Like, what does it mean that what the people were speaking to God there by the Ol Moed? Kind of, sort of.
Be a place to gather for prayer.
Bingo. And to gather even also for sacrifices. What is a sacrifice? An offering to God. Boom. Now it's not coming from top down. It's also coming from bottom up. There's a conversation. Look, we could ask a bunch of questions on Rashi. We could say, why does Rashi have to bring a parable of a king and subjects? Like, don't we know, like, what does Rashi say in text 2b? Right? Rashi says, like a king, I will gather with them to speak like a king who appoints a meeting. Do we really need a parable here? Like, we don't know what a meeting place looks like. Rashi, thank you very much. by throwing in the this king subject parable, we had no idea what a meeting place was otherwise. Like, I mean, I'm saying this sarcastically, right? Like, what's Rashi adding? Seems like Rashi's trying to indicate something else about the dialogue, even between a king. So you would think a king is only giving directives. Not necessarily. King also has count. That's what I was. Thank you very much. Reading my brain, right? A town hall to have a convo, to have a conversation. Now let's look at this in the language of the Malbim. Okay, from the 1800s, text number 3. Who up to? Ramon, you're up to you? Take it away. Text 3, please.
When we say speak with, it is a conversation. Two speakers exchanging words with each other.
Right, so speak with is the second of the two verses. Remember, there's verse 42 and verse 43. Verse 42 is God, as Rashi explains, is God saying that he's going to, from this place, he'll speak to us. In verse 43, God is saying he's going to speak with us, which is a different twist. Text number 4 is where the Rebbe gives this explanation in explaining Rashi. Dasi, please take it away. Text 4 from the Rebbe's talks.
The first passage's words, I will arrange a meeting, refer to the appointment of a place. As Unclos translated it, a place dedicated and assigned to a specific purpose. The second passage has a different meaning. In this passage, I will arrange a meeting means I will gather with them. The tent of meeting is a house of gatherings where the nation comes together. This means that the title tent of meeting has two meanings. A, an established, dedicated place where God spoke to Moses, and B, a gathering house for the Jewish people.
And so, thank you. And so here we have even a slight variation from what we've been saying. It's not only that it's a place where God is going to speak with us and allow us to have a voice, it's also a place where we're going to gather. It's also a gathering place for the Jewish people. Now, let's break this down. When you think of the Mishkan, think of the tabernacle. And obviously, it's not something that we've seen with our eyes. We haven't had one. The closest analogy we would have for this would be a synagogue. Think about, and it actually maps very nicely. Think about the role of a synagogue, right? Think about the role of this building is a synagogue. Think about the role of a synagogue. Now, in Hebrew, there are different words that refer to a synagogue space. There's Beit Knesset, Beit Medrash, right? What's the difference? What is Beit Knesset? I mean, literally, it means a house of gathering. Kind of similar, right? But it's usually a reference to prayer. Beit Medrash,
Study.
house of study. There's a difference between, and this is how we're going to kind of like map it into modern understandings of like synagogue spaces. So there's a difference between Torah study and prayer. What is Torah study versus prayer? Torah study means you're studying what God is telling you to do, telling us to do. You're studying Torah and God is saying, do this, do that. Meaning you're studying God's directives when he speaks to you. You're not speaking to God. You might be studying it and saying the words, but what words are you repeating? What words are you studying? God's directives to you, to us. You with me? That's Torah study. So Torah study is kind of top down. God says, do this, don't do that. Great. Now we're studying it, we're learning it, but it's still the divine directive, the word of God, as it were, to us. What about when we pray? That's our words to God. That's from below to above. So in the parlance, in the language of Kabbalah, we would say that Torah study represents the energy flow, milmaila lamata, from above to below, while prayer represents an energy flow from below to above, milmata lamaila, from us to God. So, in a relationship, you have two parties. So, one party could reach out, or maybe the other party could reach out and, make the first move or the first communication, whatever it is. In a healthy relationship, both parties will initiate. In our relationship with God, it's similar. So God, on the one hand, gives us directives, right? Tells us what he would like. And then we do the same. We pray and we tell God what we want. Here's what we need. Here's what we want. Here's what the world needs. Here's what we're praying for. So there's a dialogue, there's a conversation. It's not only what God telling us what's going on. We're also telling God what's going on in our lives. And that becomes the dual nature of a shul, of a synagogue. It's not only a place of prayer, it's also a place of Torah study. It's not just a place of Torah study, it's a place of prayer. And this is how it has representations of both energies, above to below and below to above. Make sense?
But we have the concept that you can pray any place. You don't have to pray inside of a
Correct.
Beit Knesset.
Correct. And you can study Torah, right? Study Torah anywhere. So the truth is, although I mapped it onto a synagogue, I just did it because, comparing structures. We don't have, we don't have the tabernacle or the temple of old, but we do have, synagogues and modern whatever synagogues share the same dual purpose as the ancient thing. But the truth is, our homes also.
In days of old, did they only
No,
pray in a?
no. People have always been praying wherever. I mean, you're on the road. What are you gonna do? Especially back in the day. If you're on the road, you were literally on the road. It's like, it would take 3 weeks, like, you're traveling in the middle of who knows where. There's no shul. I mean, there's no synagogue there. Yeah. So prayer is definitely a portable thing. Likewise, Torah study, right? In this week's Torah portion. Last week, when it talks about the construction of the ark, how to build the ark, is you put poles. So the ark was a box and it had rings, and there were 2 poles that went in, and the poles were so that you can carry the ark on your shoulder, conceptually, right? Carry it. Had poles, box in the middle, and the poles there was a mitzvah, another mitzvah with the poles. You're not allowed to pull out the poles. You would think if the ark is resting, pull out the poles, stand them up against the wall, right? Use it for some billiards. I'm kidding. No, but like whatever, you don't need the poles. Always have the poles. Why? Because the ark represents Torah. Inside the ark were the tablets containing the 10 commandments. That's symbolic of the Torah. The message is Torah is always meant to be taken with us, right? Have Torah, we'll travel, right? If you have a smartphone, who doesn't have a smartphone? If you have a smartphone, right, you can download apps like Safaria, and you have the whole Torah, thousands and thousands of texts in Hebrew and English, many of them in English as well, on your phone. You can dial up anything you want, ready to go. The Talmud, the entire Talmud, entire Tanakh, entire Medrash, everything ready to go on your phone. Have Torah will travel. That's the idea of the poles. So to your question, can prayer be done outside of a synagogue? Yes. Torah study? Yes. But symbolically, the house, a synagogue space is kind of like the Ohel Moed, a tent of meeting, which implies both things. God is meeting us to tell us what to do, and we're meeting God to speak with God and have a bit of a dialogue. The third element is also true. It's a gathering space for us. I mean, think about a synagogue. Think about a synagogue. You have the sanctuary. I mean, even like this building, you have, but for example, this building, you have the main sanctuary, which is pretty much dedicated to prayer. You have this area, which is a little bit more about, there's books, more of a library. It's a little bit more about Torah study. And then you have the social hall. What's the social hall? To hang out. It's not only a meeting place with God, it's also a meeting place amongst ourselves. And that's the third element. The third element is the social element. And it's not just social for the sake of fun, for the sake of frivolity. No, it's social in the context of getting together with each other to inspire each other, because that's how inspiration works. It's sometimes very hard to be inspired alone. If anyone has ever tried, kind of like, well, I'll now like kind of refer back to Torah study, to study Torah alone. It's very hard. Questions like, who are you going to ask? Even to like kind of get inspired alone, it's very difficult. You kind of need, in Hebrew, we would say chaverim. You need, what's the English term for that? You need friends. There you go.
Comrades.
Well, yeah, that has a comrade has a little bit of another connotation. But yeah, study partners, exactly. But inspiration partners as well, to be inspired, right? Whether it's in person, whether it's virtual, whatever it is, somebody to connect with. Very important. Now let's continue inside. we have a beautiful verse, text number 5, that speaks to this additional element, kind of the social element of the tent of meeting, getting back to the tent of meeting. Who are we up to? Toba, please read text number 5.
And the entire nation will gather before you at the entrance to the tent of meeting.
Thank you. And this verse from the book of Numbers, but who's counting? I'm kidding. From the book of Numbers, which is a few books ahead, this talks about this. I'm going to call it the social. There is a spiritual element as well, but it's not about speaking necessarily with God. The entire nation will gather before you at the entrance to the tent of meeting. It's about the people gathering amongst themselves. There's something beautiful about that. And so this takes us. I'm going to read text number 6. Here we go. Text 6. Rashi adds the words, I will gather with them to speak, because this passage states, I, God, will arrange meetings there. This means that it, meaning the Omo, it is not just a gathering house for Jews to meet with each other. It's a place where God spends time with the people. Therefore, Rashi had to specify how God bonds with the nation in this place. The answer is through speech. And so thus we have 3 dimensions. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, the sanctuary, the Ohamo, the tent of meeting, was a place where, number 1, God instructed the people. Number 2, the people gathered. Number 3, the people gathered and communicated with God as well to create that dialogue. I know it went a little bit out of order the way we explained it, but thus you have all 3 dimensions. This takes us to a to kind of like the final leg of our journey, which is to explore the notion of a farbrengen. All right, by raise of hands, who has heard of the term farbrengen? All right. Farbrengen, or as I like to say, farbring it on. I'm kidding. I didn't say that. Farbrengen. What do you know as a translation of farbrengen? Let's crowdsource this. Farbrengen means
Party.
party. Okay. What else?
Poor.
Good. No, that's not true.
Spilling your secrets to a giant group late at night with a bush ball.
Well,
Translation, that's what it
that's
is.
not a right. Okay. Farbrengen is
To bring.
Farbrengen means to gather.
Doesn't to farbrengen mean to celebrate? I always understood that it means it's celebration.
So it's all touching on what a farbrengen is, but a farbrengen is also a little bit more. Farbrengen is typically defined as a gathering or a Chasidic gathering, and it connotes the idea of people getting together with a unified purpose and a positive goal, and that is to inspire each other, to connect, to build friendship, to build camaraderie with each other, and to further our collective spiritual goals. That is the purpose of a farbrengen. Now, sometimes people say l'chaim at a farbrengen. That is true, but that's not like the definition of a l'chaim of a Freudian. That's the definition of a farbrengen. A farbrengen is really about collective inspiration. Now, sometimes the farbrengen will look like this. There will be people around the table, maybe like this or bigger, or people just, whatever in a room, and somebody will be speaking and everyone else will be listening. So like, for example, when the Rebbe would farbrengen, in Brooklyn and Crown Heights and 770 Eastern Parkway, so he would speak and everybody would listen. That's the way it was. And then between his talks that were between 20 and 40 minutes long-ish, so people would say l'chaim and they would sing, and then the next one would roll, and farbrengens would last between 3 and 6 hours, or maybe more, maybe less, whatever. So that's one type of farbrengen. That's kind of farbrengen with somebody at the head, kind of like deliver. And you also have farbrengens, like we have farbrengens here on a regular basis, every Shabbos and other times. And sometimes you'll have people, like one person who's doing the talking and everyone's doing the listening. But there's another form of farbrengen, which is a little bit more of a collective experience. Farbrengen meaning where people sit and they talk to each other. They talk with each other, not to each other, but they with each other. People share what's on their heart, what's on their soul, what's on their mind. And number 1, just to be known, to be heard, to be felt, and to help each other. There's a beautiful Talmudic statement quoting a verse. Verse says, Daiga b'lev yashchena. If someone has a worry in their heart, So the literal translation of the verse is, if you have a worry in your heart, push it away. If only it was so easy, push it away. You just push away a worry in the heart. So the Talmud, the Gemara brings two ways of doing this. Number one means you should turn your attention elsewhere, meaning divert your attention, even as difficult as it is. You have this worry, this anxiety, this feeling, this, the kind of this low level, stress happening. Okay, so focus on something else. Put something else in front of you, focus your attention there, and that will the anxiety, the worry will dissipate on its own because your attention is focused elsewhere. And it's kind of like a psychological hack that we do. But the Talmud says there's another understanding of this. Daiga belev, instead of reading Yashchana, read it Yisichana. You can revowelize the word, because in Hebrew, the letter Shin could be the letter Sin. So if we kind of reimagine the word, it's not push it away, it's not divert your attention from it, but rather it's, if you have a problem, if you have something that you're worried about, speak about it with someone else. Yisichena acheren. Speak with a friend, speak with another person. So often, when we have something that troubles us, if we speak about it with someone else, we feel like the weight is gone from our shoulders. And this is true psychologically and spiritually on multiple levels. Number one, when you share it, it ceases to be this kind of scary monster that's lurking in the darkness. It comes out into the open. So even for yourself, now you can handle it. Also, when you share something that you're worried about, in the process of sharing it, you can come up with solutions. So the first point is, forget solutions. The fact that you're sharing it means you're kind of, it's no longer like a hidden thing that's this, huge thing because it's hidden. It's now in the open. That's point number one. Point number two, you can discover solutions even on your own when you articulate the problem to someone. Articulating the problem can help solve it. And number three, if you can't find the solution, maybe somebody with a fresh pair of eyes can. And they can help you. And even if not, number four, the very fact that you have a friend that you can share with, that itself is soothing. 4 reasons why sitting down with someone and talking out what's on your heart, something that's weighing heavily on you, that discussion, that conversation can help you immensely, help all of us immensely for 4 different reasons. And this is some Talmudic advice going back, 1,500, 1,600 years. Ancient Talmudic advice that still stands true till this day. I guarantee you, right? Psychological studies have proven all of these things for all these factors that we've discussed. The idea of having a friend to share with is of critical importance. And so what's the message of the tent of meeting? The tent of meeting is not just a place for God to dictate to us what to do. It's not just a place for us to speak with God. It's also a place for us to speak with each other. The tent of meeting, the Mishkan, was a meeting place for the people. I mean, where else were they hanging out, right? At the third cactus from the left in the desert. I mean, I don't know if they had cactuses there for the record, so I could be wrong. But where else were they hanging out? They were hanging out in the Almod, in the Mishkan. They would go there to offer sacrifices, for maybe prayer, but they would also gather to inspire each other. Let's take a look at some insights on Farbrengen and how that applies for us today. So now we're in the Farbrengen section of this class. This is section number 4. So we're skipping section 3, section number 4, starting on the page marked 110, the Chasidic Farbrengen. I'm going to read these texts, and it's like a series of texts. They say similar ideas. Each one has a little bit of a nuance. So let's go. Text 11a. The primary purpose of a Farbrengen can be understood through the verse, "Can two walk together unless they have met?" That is from the book of Amos. By the way, let's pause here for a moment. Look at that verse. Can two walk together unless they have met? It's hard to understand the depth of that verse until you see the word met in Hebrew is noadu, which comes from the word vad, hitvadut, right? The idea of a farbrengen in Hebrew is hitvadut, means a gathering, a connection. Can two people walk together if they haven't connected? How are you going to do a project with someone unless you're connected with them? Remember in school? Remember 6th grade science? Back in the day, you were assigned to work with someone on making a volcano. Remember back in the day? Right? You would put what was it? You would put Diet Coke Mentos? Am I wrong here? Was that the
Alka-Seltzer.
Alka-Seltzer, right? Huh? How do you
Baking
make a
soda.
volcano? Help me out. It's
Baking
been
soda. Baking soda, no?
Oh, fine. Oh, the Mentos and Diet Coke. That's how you made explosion. Okay, my bad. Sorry. That was the unsanctioned version. I'm sorry.
Volcanoes explode.
I'm totally I'm like confusing things. All right. So what was it? Baking soda and vinegar, you said? All right. And then it would bubble over and then whatever. You can do a project with somebody that you don't know that's not your friend. It's annoying, right? Whatever, it's not going to be as effective. How can two walk together unless they've met, unless they know each other? Let's continue. The deeper intent of such gatherings of Farbrengen is to strengthen the bond with Hashem through increasing in the study of Torah and the observance of mitzvot, fulfilling the ideal of "and I will meet with you there," which is, of course, verse number either 42 or 43, and this is from our Torah portion, the idea of that God will meet us there, where we meet each other in the striving toward holy and better things. Text 11b. Here's another letter from the Rebbe, dated September 22nd, 1973. The purpose of a Chasidic Farbrengen is for the participants to encourage each other in Torah learning, the fulfillment of the mitzvot with Hidur beauty, and the spreading of Yiddishkeit, Judaism in general. This includes, of course, the proper conduct of matters of Derech Eretz, respect and proper manners, and good midos, character traits. Meaning, what happens at a Farbrengen is that we should encourage each other to study more Torah, to do more mitzvahs, to do them in a better way, to further, Yiddishkeit, to help share Yiddishkeit, Judaism, with those that maybe are not so, plugged in or connected or have opportunities, to give those opportunities to others. And of course, to encourage each other to be more of a mensch. That's what a Farbrengen's about. By the way, if at a Farbrengen, people are becoming less of a mensch, you can just pull out 11b and say, hey, 1 second. That's not what Farbrengen's about. Farbrengen is about becoming more of a mensch with good character traits. Text 12a. The concept of a Farbrengen doesn't apply to an individual. You can't Farbrengen with yourself, as it were. It requires at least two people. As reflected in the verse, can two walk together unless they have met? The purpose of a Farbrengen is for one person to help and support the other, right? Each shall help his friend to strengthen and encourage each other in all areas of Judaism, Torah, mitzvot, and even the well springs of Chassidus. So again, we see that the purpose of Farbrengen is, purpose of Farbrengen is to support each other, to help each other. It's an incredible opportunity to be there, to rally for each other, and to help encourage each other to grow in all matters of Judaism. Text 12b. It is worthwhile and proper, says the Rebbe, to hold a Chasidic Farbrengen, conducted with love, unity, and joy. Through a Farbrengen, much more can be accomplished than what an individual sitting alone with a book can achieve. Look at that. By the way, sitting alone with a book is not really the translation. It's someone who's sitting alone and studying. V'lomed min hasefer. Even someone studying a book on their own in their house, you can accomplish sometimes more at a Farbrengen than even through sitting over a book by yourself studying. Text number 13 from another letter. The purpose of Farbrengen is to inspire involvement in Torah mitzvot with vitality, joy, and a sense of reflection and contrition combined. By the way, that's interesting. You have the joy and the seriousness all wrapped up in the same bundle. At the same time, it reflects the truth of the sage's teaching. Great is shared drink. Speaking to L'chaims, great is shared drink, for it fosters closeness. Though naturally this must be approached with appropriate caution, obviously not to go overboard with the L'chaims. Text 14. A Farbrengen is connected with the concept of sharing a drink, as expressed in the saying, great is shared drink, for it fosters closeness. This closeness is not only among those participating in the Farbrengen, but also between them and our Father in heaven, meaning it's not only about getting connected with the person sitting next to you, but also, of course, inspiring all of us to get connected better with God. Text 15. The Rebbe would say, this is the Rebbe quoting his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, that there is no true interruption between one Farbrengen and the next. Heaven forbid. Meaning, life is one big Farbrengen. It is merely a pause in the meantime, allowing for rest. The next Farbrengen can be conducted with renewed energy and joy. Right? It's not like, oh, there's no Farbrengen tonight. It's a Farbrengen. We're just taking a break in between the Farbrengens to recharge. Text number 16. I love this one. There are some who sit. Where is this from? 1984. There are some who wait to be invited to Farbrengen, and not just by anyone. They expect to be summoned by the most important emissaries, the likes of the elders of Moab and Midian, with promises of a house full of silver and gold. That's kind of like a joke about Balaam. Remember the evil prophet who was like invited, he was a prominent guy. He needed a lot of money to be lured to show up. So some people say I'm too important to just show up to a Farbrengen. I need to be invited with formality. The Rebbe says, no, it's not a good thing. But why wait for someone to invite you to Farbrengen? On the contrary, you should be the one to take the initiative. Travel far and wide. Knock on the doors of everyone in the community and awaken them from their slumber. Awaken, you sleepers, from your sleep, and your slumberers from your stupor. Even if, and that's a verse. That's a quote from a verse from one of the prophets. Even if there isn't someone who can lead or speak, it doesn't matter. Read aloud from a written text, share a teaching, or do whatever is necessary. The main thing is to inspire and ensure that the Farbrengen happens. Text 17a, another letter from the Rebbe. The impact of the Farbrengen should be evident for weeks and even months afterwards. In other words, a good Farbrengen has a positive impact for a long time. Text 17b. Thank you for the good news, the Rebbe writes in another letter about the Farbrengen. The main focus, however, is the inspiration it brings to the days following the Farbrengen. Certainly those who have the ability are ensuring that this inspiration translates into action even during the mundane days of the week. That concludes the Farbrengen about the Farbrengen, right? So you can look at this as a class. That's one way to look at it. Torah Studies is a class. Or you could look at it as a weekly Farbrengen. That's how I look at it. We get together, right? We share some laughs at like some really bad jokes, right? We notice my haircut, right? And we connect with each other. What a great way to hang out on a Tuesday evening for an hour or so. A great way to connect, to inspire ourselves, to get to know each other, to speak about, Torah ideas and Torah and mitzvot inspiration, and hopefully encourage us that in the days following this class brengen. Can we do that? Class brengen? See what I did there? Hyphenating things, class brengen. That hopefully that this indeed warms our souls, warms our hearts, brings us closer together and brings us closer to Hashem, to God Almighty, and positivity and inspiration. And hopefully, if we have any areas in our lives that are a little bit dark, meaning parts that are, that are not exactly the way we want it to be, things that we're worried about, things that we're, whatever, things that are lurking in our, in our subconscious, whatever. Hopefully the light of Torah, the light of our shared inspiration should push away the darkness and give us hope and give us positivity in the week forward till we meet again. Remember, Farbrengens don't end. We just take a breather before the next one. All right? Makes sense? I should have ended with the Amen. Sorry. I kept on going, but thank you. I appreciate that. So just to summarize, right? This is your AI summary. Look at this. Just like that. AI is ready to go. The AI summary, we asked the question. We had 2 verses that speak to the role of the Mishkan as the tent of meeting. And the verses seem to say pretty much the same thing. Even Rashi in his commentary, Rashi usually helps us. He seems to imply kind of also the same thing. But a closer look at Rashi yielded the following nuance, that in the first of the 2 verses, verse 42, the Ohamot is described as a place where God speaks to the people. Verse 43 is a place described as Ohamot is described as a place where God speaks with the people, which implies a conversation, which implies also a conversation between us ourselves. And so we said there are 3 purposes, 3 roles of the Mishkan. 1, that's where God directs us. Number 2, that's where we pray to God. And number 3, that's where we connect with each other. And we ended the class with a conversation about the value of connecting with each other for shared inspiration. Make sense? Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out tonight. We'll see you next week. Questions, comments? Rebuttals?
I always thought of you for bringing just as what we have Saturday afternoon,
Right.
which is sort of balagan.
It is. It can be.
Yeah.
It can be a little, but at the core, but that's only because you have to jump in. Once you jump in, you realize, oh, it's like, oh, okay, I can connect. By the way, by the Kiddush, some of those tables, Farbrengens are happening.
Yeah.
Like in some of those corners over there, guys are, there's a little l'chaim there. Doesn't have to be l'chaim, by the way, but there is a little l'chaim. And Chaver are talking. And it's like an inspiring.
Yeah.
There are Farbrengens that break out over here in this room afterwards. I mean, this, on the couches. Farbrengen doesn't have to be something formal. Doesn't have to be a balagan either. Meaning like, kind of a lot of things happening. It could be just two people sitting down, schmoozing, connecting, and inspiring each other. So let's share the inspiration. At the end of the day, the first thing that God said is no good. The first thing, what that is? In the Torah, the first thing that God said, this is not good. For man to be alone, for a human being to be alone. It's not good. It's not good. It's not good to be alone. We need each other. Humans were created to be social creatures. I don't mean like, let's go to the mall social. I mean social in the context of to share. You can't keep things to ourselves. It's not healthy. We got to be able to share, be open, to have somebody in this world that knows you, that gets you, right? That you can share. Could be a family member, could be a friend, right? Anybody. Could be just somebody at your synagogue or around the table here. All right, so let's share and connect. And with this, we'll inspire each other for great things. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Look at that, we did it. All right, we circle back. All right, thank you for joining me tonight for Torah Studies. Hope you enjoyed it. And next time, we'll see you next time. All right. Laila Tov, everybody. Great to see you guys.